Being a writer requires mental strength, a lot of it. You need to power through rejection, the likes of which a lot of people never experience in their whole entire life. You need to work long hours in solitude. You need to expose your innermost thoughts to the world. You need to promote yourself hard. You need to work hard. And yeah, you also, on top of all of that, require talent and good luck. Damn it. Pardon my French, but this can be a complete mindfuck. That's why, as a writing coach, a huge part of my business is helping writers to adopt and maintain a healthy, positive growth mindset. Needless to say, as a writing coach and in the 4 years of running my weekly writing group, I have seen my share of limiting, fixed, and even toxic mindsets. I'm not judging here at all. I have been afflicted by this myself, which is why I think that I'm probably the right person to talk to you about this on this special episode of the How to Be a Writer podcast. I also thought it was especially appropriate to do this episode now because this has been a week where I personally and professionally have been experiencing a lot of self-doubt. I've been querying my novel, Gone to Ground, and I've already had a few rejections come in, always expected but never easy. I also ended my writing group after 4 long years. Not to worry, I've tweaked my business so that you can definitely have even better access to me, that you can still be reading your stuff to me and to other writers. And you'll hear more about that in just a little bit. But it's been super high pressure because I just didn't know how people would react to this tweak in my business. And I also, as if that wasn't enough, started a new TikTok account as my alter ego author. And for the first couple days, I was really talking myself into believing that it would never work out and that I was wasting my time. Today, I'm feeling so much better about all of this, and that's the important thing to realize. Your mood can go up and down, and that's okay. You can have good days and bad days, and that's normal. It's to be expected. But your mindset is something that you really do need to maintain. You need to protect your mental health at all costs. And you need to maximize your chances of writing success. And that really requires a positive mindset that's healthy. So let's talk about these toxic mindsets. In this episode, we're going to keep it super positive. We're going to address these toxic mindsets that some writers hold, and we're really going to help you to see right through them so that you can get yourself working and healthy and happy and having that positive mindset that we all need to succeed. If you're a writer dreaming of becoming a successful author, join me, writing coach Karena Akhavein, on the How to Be an Author podcast, your weekly source for writing information, inspiration, and motivation. Are you ready to get healthy? Yay! Welcome to the How to Be a Writer podcast. This is a special episode that I think is going to be really valuable. And to get super positive and healthy, we're going to have to get a little bit negative. And I'm going to run you through some of the mindsets and some of the thought patterns that I think afflict so many writers like you, like me, all of us. So let's start talking about the first one that I see a whole hell of a lot. It's perfectionism. I've devoted whole episodes of my previous podcast, the Creative Happy Hour podcast, to the idea of perfectionism because this is something that sounds like it comes from a good place. It sounds like you're somebody who has high standards and that you really expect a lot of yourself and that you're going to work towards it. But really, perfectionism ends up not doing that. Perfectionism ends up leading to this idea that probably your work and you will never be good enough. And at the end of the day, it leads a lot of writers to think that they might as well give up. And that's the last thing I want you to do because being a successful writer really depends on staying the course and, keeping on, working through those self-doubts and also not having this mindset of thinking I'll never be good enough because you know what happens with that? You stop trying to be good. You tell yourself that really, this is my best. It'll never be good enough. So this is what you get. And guess what? Your reader wants your best. And they probably understand that it's never going to be perfect. Perfection's not the goal. A good story is the goal. So if you see yourself being a little bit paralyzed by perfectionism, I think it's time to let go of that. It's really crucial for you. Now, another thing that writers are often afflicted with is this fear of rejection, fear of failure. And fear of failure happens to just about everyone in pretty much every industry. But with writers, I think that since we put ourselves out there, we're in such a vulnerable position. We're really spilling our guts onto the page. We feel like we're literally tying ourselves up with a ribbon and delivering ourselves to the reader or to agents or to editors, so that when we get some kind of negative feedback or some rejection, we overreact. We think, oh my God, I suck. This means no one's ever going to like me, like my work. People hate me. It's really embarrassing. What a waste of time. I better just quit. These things can quickly spiral out of control. I get it. I've seen it happen. And especially when you're a writer who's probably going to get a lot of rejection. You're going to get bad reviews. You're going to get rejected by agents. And again, you just need to power on. It is something that happens to so many of us. And I know that it probably doesn't make you feel better to know that rejection is literally part of the process. But I think that one of my tips that I give my writers might help you. I often say, instead of fearing rejection, plan for rejection. Make rejection literally so much part of the process that you literally have it in your to-do list. Like, get rejected a couple times. Not only does this help you to really feel like a real writer, honestly, because real writers get rejected all the time, but it helps you to plan and see past the rejection. It helps you to come up with all of these different plans and different techniques and different alternatives to what you thought you would do because of this rejection. Sometimes, thanks to rejection, some writers find themselves on a path that they never imagined they would be on. So many writers have encountered a huge amount of success with self-publishing, for example, after being rejected by the conventional publishing industry. They never would have had that type of success had they just gone with some basic agent and left it at that. Instead, they used the rejection to find another alternative option and to push in that direction so that they were not defined by their rejection. I think that's great. And talking about not being defined by your rejection, I think that's really important, because don't sit there after 10 or 20 rejections and say, this is who I am. I'm an author who's gotten rejected gazillion times. This is part of my story. Yes, it's part of your story, but it's not who you are. Who you are is what you decide to do after that. And again, this waste of time thing, I keep talking about the waste of time idea. I'm going to talk a lot more about this later, because this waste of time idea is so toxic that I need to address a whole portion of this podcast to it. So let's go on to some other little toxic thought patterns and toxic mindsets that writers hold. Another toxic belief is that publishing's a rotten industry. It used to be so much better and it's so gross. It's not even a meritocracy. There are all these people who are getting in because of who they know and their connections. There are these gatekeepers who are stupid, who don't know a good book when they see one. Oh my God, life is so unfair. It's impossible. Okay, this is not helping anyone. If you went into writing believing fundamentally that publishing was a rotten industry to begin with, great. What are you going to do about it? Why are you still trying to be part of it? I think that somewhere fundamentally, every single writer who gets somewhere believes that, okay, maybe publishing is not ideal. Maybe, it's a business that's a money-making business. And that's something where if you call that rotten, okay, but at least stop to consider that that's how you're looking at it. Okay, if making money is a problem, maybe you as a writer should not have that goal, correct? So if you believe that publishing is so rotten, what are you going to do about it? How are you going to make it different? How are you going to be an author who isn't defined by some of the conventional beliefs that are part of this publishing industry? just keep in mind that if you want to change a whole industry or if you want to be something different, realize that there's going to be a lot of work and effort involved, right? Pushing and going against the grain is hard. You need to be ready for that. It's going to be a tough road. And I'm not saying it's impossible. Listen, nothing is impossible, right? But you do need to look at how you're going to achieve the seemingly impossible. So just keep that in mind. Another real problem mindset that I see with many of my writers, especially when they first come to work with me or when they first join writing group, is that they are super allergic to critique. Right? They're like, if you don't like this, it's not my fault. I did my best. If you don't like it, you suck. They get really angry at the person doing the critiques. Now, sometimes people who are critiquing your work do suck. Sometimes people aren't critics and they're not editors. They're more like trolls. And there's a difference, right? If somebody's coming to you and they're so cruel about your work that you're feeling like it's just not redeemable and like they've told you that you're trash, your work is trash, you should quit. Yeah, that's not a good critique. That's a person who's just being cruel. But if you're getting a critique that's nuanced, a critique that if you really take a step back from it, you realize that this critique is meant to improve your work and make your work the best that it can be, try to accept some of it. Try to see what might actually help you to improve your work. Okay? A lot of my writers that I've worked with at first believed that just because they spent a lot of time on something, it was automatically good enough and that they had earned the right to not have to change it. Here's the thing, and this is the thing that I always explain to people. This is why we need editors for our work. This is why we need beta readers. No matter how good you are, no matter how much of a consummate professional you are, even if you are a professional writer, a professional editor, you are going to be blind to some things about your work. There are going to be some things that you didn't consider and you didn't see. There are going to be some things that an outside person is going to be able to bring to the table that is going to improve your work. It's going to make it more clear. It's going to make your characters better developed. It's going to take out, things that were extra. It's going to add in things where it wasn't, understandable as much. That is just important to realize because sometimes writing a book is not a one-person job. I know it can be solitary. I know the writing process is very solitary, but once you've written it or written your first draft, now we start to get into the teamwork part of it, where critique is extremely important. It's a tool that you should really take advantage of. It's part of the learning process. As a writer, we're always learning. And we shouldn't feel that we're being attacked when we're being critiqued. And we should never believe that our first try is the only try. I had a young writer who was like, nope, I don't believe in editing because my first try is my best try. No, it's not. How dare you think that? And, they've since come back from that opinion. They've grown, but that was a really toxic mindset. And I'm so glad that they actually said it out loud because that way I was able to address it and I was able to work through it with them. I thought that was really very, very harmful to them. And I'm so glad we got it out of the way while they were still young enough. And again, this idea of, are you young enough? I don't want you to compare yourself to other writers and be like, oh my God, I'm older than they are, or I'm younger than they are, or they're better than I am, or their life is better, or they have more tools, or they have more support. Comparison also is toxic, right? You know this. We live in the era of social media. We live in the era of seeing so many people promote themselves on social media or in the press or anything else, and we start to believe the bullshit. We start to believe other people's PR. Remember that PR is people showing the best part of themselves, is people promoting the heck out of themselves. And of course, they're going to show only the good sides. And I have so many authors that I know who are like, wow, well, they have it so much easier than I do. It's easy for them. They're more talented than I am, or they have more time than I do, or they have a rich spouse who supports them, or they have this publishing company behind them and they don't need to do as much work, or they have a ghostwriter, whatever it is. Guess what? Good for them, even if it's true, which I don't think it's always true. Even if that stuff is true, So what? That's not the case with you. Comparing yourself to other people is not going to make you a better writer. It's not going to make you a more successful writer. It's only going to make you unhappy and stressed out. So honestly, I think that this is something that's pretty hard to let go of because, of course, it's human nature to compare. It's human nature to look at the grass on the other side and be like, wow, that's awfully green compared to where I am. But really, the less you do this, the better. And if it takes a little social media break for you to do it, so be it. But I also think it's a pretty good exercise to be able to be on social media. Look at how other authors are promoting themselves and be inspired by it instead of frustrated by it. I think that being blind to what's going on in the publishing world, being blind to what's going on with other authors is not the solution. So I think just learn to look at it and take it with a grain of salt and use it to your advantage. And then you'll be a much happier person. Another super toxic thing is thinking that, this whole idea that quitting is for losers, that hard work being everything, that hustle mentality. A lot of people have this. It's not just in writing. It's in a lot of different industries where people feel like if they work all the time, that means that they're more virtuous, they're more deserving of success, but that these people, they risk burnout. I've worked with writers who've been risking burnout, and it's not pretty because once you burn out, once you've worked yourself down to nothing, once you've exhausted yourself, once you've kept making the same mistakes and kept coming at the same things the same way and not succeeding and working only harder, not smarter, that burnout is really hard to come back from. So burnout is not a badge of honor. Sometimes taking a break is not for losers at all. Sometimes taking a break is something that you absolutely need to do so that you can regroup, so that you can analyze what you're doing and you can come back to this whole writing thing fresher, smarter, more inspired, more motivated. So never be afraid to take a break. It's not for the weak at all. It's for the strong who want to have a long and happy writing career. This is the other thing, is that unlike athletics, for example, where people really have to push themselves to, 100% of their capacity because they're competing with others, writing is not a race. You are on your own schedule. You're on your own path. You are your own writer with your own voice, your own career that you're doing. And I think that you need to realize that burning out is not going to help you in any way. So take your time. Don't waste time, but take your time and look and see, what are the ways that I can make this easier for myself, not harder? Because this is another very toxic mindset, is when people think that suffering is necessary, suffering is a badge of honor. It's what makes you a real writer. That whole writing is, sitting in front of the computer and bleeding. No, make things easier for yourself. It's not cheating. Okay? People think the more complicated and tortured I am, the better. That's what makes me a real author. These people who are happy and doing other things other than writing on top of writing, they're not real writers. Yes, they are, baby. And you can be that kind of writer too. So stop that negativity of being like, oh, that's not real writing, or they're not a real writer because they didn't almost burn out. They didn't write night and day. They didn't go blind in front of their computer. They didn't bleed on the laptop. That's not a great view to have, right? So that's not really great. However, the other thing is, don't believe in exceptions and miracles. Don't believe that you can write your book in 2 days and that it's going to be awesome. Okay? Or don't believe that you're a little traumatized, so that excuses everything and it makes your work so valid that everybody's going to see past the glaring spelling mistakes, grammar mistakes, story problems, and that they're going to say, oh, you poor little traumatized, wonderful thing, because you're young, because you're traumatized, because you're this, because you're that, you are the exception. You're the miracle. I've heard so many writers say, my book starts slow, but it gets so much better. But guess what? The agent's not going to read beyond the first 10 pages. So who cares if it gets better? Write the best version of your book you can write and don't expect any special treatment whatsoever, right? There is no write it and they will come. That happens in the movies and Field of Dreams, and it's a baseball field, not a book, honey. It doesn't happen that way, right? So that idea that people are going to cut me some slack, people are going to help me because of this miracle or because of this exception or because I deserve it or because I'm one in a million. No, And guess what? Before you come for me and you say, yeah, but look at this writer that I saw on Instagram or that I saw on TikTok, they got this amazing publishing deal, blah, 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 blah. You don't know what they did in the background. You don't know the work they put in. You don't know the strategy that they had. And yes, sometimes there is some kind of luck. Sometimes there is something that happens, but maybe that's not going to happen to you, but that's okay. Okay. So no comparison, but no thinking that you're going to get away with being less than. You won't. Don't also expect people to support you because you're you, especially friends and family. I see too many writers who have this toxic mindset that if their friends and family don't support them and basically make their writing career, like if your friends and family don't each buy a book, like a box of books, a boatload of books, and they don't read your book in book club and they don't support you and write, wonderful reviews for you, and they don't go above and beyond, that they don't love you and that they're horrible people. No, if people are not your reader, or if they have something else going on, I'm going to throw that back in your face. How dare you expect that of them? It's not fair. So yeah, there's this expectation problem, and I think that that is not fair in either direction. So just be cognizant of that maybe that's a toxic mindset. Those expectations are toxic. They're holding you back instead of helping you. Now, the final thing that I'm going to talk about is this kind of perfection thing. It's another part of the perfection thing, but it's this thing of thinking that you need to be all things to all people, thinking that you need to be not only a great person, but you need to be, involved in every single charity and volunteering and every single political thing. You need to be giving your time and attention to it. You have to be jumping on every single social media trend. You need to be promoting yourself on every single platform. Oh my God, how dare you not be on Pinterest in addition to TikTok and Instagram and Facebook and blogging. I mean, it boggles the mind. There's so many things. You also have to be a good friend, a good professional, a housekeeper, a wife, a partner, a mom. You can't be all things to all people, right? People are afraid that, oh my God, if I, didn't read everything by every author and I'm not supporting them in addition, and I'm not writing reviews for them in addition to doing my writing stuff, I suck. Baby, that's going to lead you to burnout. That's something that's impossible to maintain. And I know that sometimes we look at other people and we think that they have it all and that they're doing it all. You don't know what their life is. They might be not cleaning their house. They might be isolating themselves. They might be actually not a good friend in real life, or they might be actually not spending as much time writing their book as you think, or they might have put their money towards hiring a social media manager who's doing a lot of that work for them. You just don't know the whole story. No matter what you think you know, you probably don't know the whole story. So stop comparing and just start deciding what's important to you and how you're going to make your job of writing a book easier, how you're going to make your goals come true. And a big part of that is being more positive. Forget looking at others and trying to knock them down to make yourself feel better. That's super toxic. Forget thinking that, this is going to happen without any intervention on my part. That's toxic. Just look at how you can work on your own timeline in your own way. And don't worry that you're wasting time with the things that you've done. Don't worry that you've made mistakes in the past. Don't worry even if you've been toxic in the past. That's not a big deal. Your writing life can turn around instantly, and it can turn around today. Even if you've made every single mistake that I mentioned, even if you've had all of these thoughts, even if you've been toxic as hell, tomorrow you can turn it around and you can be positive and you can improve and you can be the writer that you know you are meant to be. This was a short little episode, but I think that even though we talked about all things toxic in this episode of the How to Be an Author podcast, I think that ultimately comes out really positive. I think that ultimately this can really help you to know that these things are just mindsets. These things are just thoughts that you can instantly change. You can really change the essence of how you are as a person and as a writer, and it is going to vastly improve your situation. It's going to really improve things so much that I think that if you turn around and look at how you are 6 months down the road, a year down the road, after having embraced much more positive mindsets and after actually acting on that, you're going to see that you are much further than you might have thought possible. So if you want someone who's going to help you to embrace positive mindsets, if you want someone who's going to do the straight talk to you and, talk you back down if you're having these bad thoughts, I am now offering a membership, which is called Writing Coach on Demand. And this is a membership where basically for a small fee every month, less than the price of a daily cup of coffee, you get access to me during office hours, multiple times a week at times that are going to be convenient to you. So during the day, during the evenings, mornings, weekdays, weekends, I'm going to be there so that I can support you. You can just hop on and there I am on Zoom. You don't even have to put your camera on if that's something that traumatizes you. And there's going to be some opportunities to sign up for a private 15-minute slot at no extra cost, or to get on when other people are on so that you can run your synopsis by them, or you can make a new writer friend, or you can critique something or be critiqued. All of those things are going to be super fun. And I think that ultimately they're going to help you to be a stronger writer with a better community around you. So that's it for today, my friend. I hope you give this some thought, really let it sink in, and I look so forward to being with you next time on the How to Be an Author podcast. If you have any pressing writing-related questions or would like to be featured on the How to Be an Author podcast, please feel free to reach out on my website, creativeandwritingcoach.com.